Are you an art enjoyer? Even though I am shit at drawing, I enjoy all kinds of art. One day, I was scrolling through Wikipedia and came across Fayum and was intrigued by how they look so realistic and modern, but be from the same time as the Roman Empire. In fact, Fayum even inspired the creation of me. So let's dive into the history of Fayum. Imagine waking up on a warm Egyptian morning and seeing the Egyptian vultures flying above, the cobras being tamed, and the Nile crocodiles floating in the river. You start to prepare breakfast when your dad Akhenaten comes running in, yelling about how no one will paint your dad's Fayum, so you ask yourself, what is a Fayum? So Fayums come from an Egyptian city called Fayum, or in Egyptian Shedet, and the Greeks even came up with the incredible name Crocodilopolis. Now the reason the Greeks called the city Crocodilopolis was the sacred crocodile they tamed and worshipped called Petsuchos. The city would later go on to be called a whole host of names, but another interesting one was around the time of Alexander the Great. Ptolemy Philadelphus the second would rename the city Arsinoe after the name of his sister wife, Arsinoe II. He would later go on to found a city near the edge of the town named Philadelphia. You may now be asking yourself, what the fuck does this have to do with Fayum? Well, the answer would be, this city is so cool it doesn't matter. Eventually, during the time of the Roman Empire, the Egyptians continued to bury their dead even though their Roman occupiers wanted them to cremate them. Egyptians would often paint Egyptian death masks on wood with a pigmented wax technique called encaustic. Originally believed to represent Greek settlers, modern studies show that the Fayum portraits most likely represent native Egyptians. So pre-19th century, an Italian explorer, Pietro della Valle, went on a journey to Saqqara, Memphis in 1615 and was the first European to document mummy portraits. And just like any other European would do, Pietro brought back some mummies and portraits to Europe and are still there today. During the 19th century, European interest in Egypt was increasing, which increased more finds of mummy portraits. We do not really know where these first mummy portraits were found. They could have been from Saqqara or Thebes. In 1820, the Baron of Mindful found and bought many mummy portraits for a German collector. These artifacts were put on a boat full of other Egyptian artifacts and were all lost in the North Sea. There were a few other people with Fayums before the 20th century like Léon de Laborde and a member of the Jean-François Champollions. Both of their Fayums look so similar, many people believe they were from the same source. During the late 19th and 20th century, many more Fayum would be found. A man named Daniel Marie Fouquet in 1887 would hear of a discovery of portrait mummies in a cave. He would ultimately arrive to the cave too late and discover the finders had used the Fayum as firewood. Ultimately, Fouquet found 2 Fayums still intact. This led to him starting excavations and finding 81 Fayum in the first year. This really kick-started the volume of Fayum we have now. Fayums were especially special because of their style. Fayum were generally very realistic and modern. They combined both Greek and Egyptian elements. The Fayums would depict different Roman hairstyles and were great at dating the paintings. Their clothes helped represent their wealth and social status. An athlete would be depicted with a bare upper torso, or the most common one, a cloak worn over a chiton. Fayum can also be very distinct from style to how realistic they are. This is because of the types of boards or panels they used, some of them being oak, lime, sycamore, cedar, cypress, fig, and citrus. They would then be cut into rectangular panels and set into layers and surrounded by bands of cloth, making it look like a window peering into the face of the deceased. When beginning to paint, they would prime with a layer of plaster. They would then paint with large strokes and vivid colors, creating an impressionistic effect. They would even use gold leaf on occasions. Fayums are also one of the few examples of panel paintings to have survived other than the Severin Tondo, a panel painting much like Fayum. Fayums eventually began to die out during the beginning of the 3rd century because of the severe economic and religious crisis Rome faced. Later on in modern times, Fayum would be useful to recreate Jewish faces from 1st century Judea for an Israeli movie Legend of Destruction in 2015. Fayums will always be one of my favorite forms of art, and I hope you learned a little bit about them in this video. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.